Today I want to share with you two excellent techniques that you may want to consider implementing into your training. These are close quarter combatives, that is, techniques that are used when your opponent is very close. If this heavy bag represented another person, this would be close range, this would be close quarters. I'm close enough to be lifted, struck with another person's head, close enough to be bit by their teeth, scratched, so on and so forth. So what are these techniques? Well, these are bicep strikes, done with the arms and done with the legs. So why do them? Well, as I just said, oftentimes the go-to things in your toolbox for striking are unavailable. It's hard to use your knees sometimes. You're not always in that perfect position. Or maybe you can't get enough space to develop speed and accelerate to create real power with a punch. So these techniques give you options. Moreover, they're really simple to do. So let me show you what a bicep bump looks like. It's essentially straightening your arm while you drive your shoulder forward and turn your hips. So if this bag represented a person, what I'm doing is essentially trying to strike the other side of the bag and use the space here in the bend of my arm as the impact. I'll do a few so you can see. I don't think anyone has a problem straightening their arm, and I think you'll be surprised at the power that you can really create with this. So let's break down the tool a little bit. First, the contact surface. You can use either the bicep brachii or the cubital fossa, which is the space behind the elbow when you bend. You want to throw the technique ideally from a 90-degree angle. This gives you both distance to create space and accelerate while also maximizing the potential power. Also without being too far away, because you're not going to be able to wind up and do this technique. As you do this, you want to drive your scapula forward, which is really important, and also torque at the hips. As you do this, it's like a pulsing action, and the goal is to create a little space so that you can then use other combatives that are more powerful. I wouldn't use this if I didn't have to, but more often than not, if I'm doing a bicep bump, there are no other options. I've chosen not to use my head for whatever reason. Maybe I don't have a good shot, or maybe my opponent's head is protected and there's no space to actually strike with. So now I have a partner, guys, and let me show you how I position people in class to practice this. So with my partner standing across from me, what I want to do is get as close to them as possible. So I'm going to invite my partner to come in. This is the range that I need to throw. So I'm going to practice on the outside of his upper arm. And what I'm going to do is reach behind him like I was scratching his back. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to straighten my arm while I drive my scapula forward and torque at my hip. So it'll look like this. We're doing it really soft, but you can do it much harder as well. It's a nice body conditioning exercise when you do it a little harder. I'll thump him a little bit. Okay? Now, if he wrapped me up, let's say we were in close quarters, maybe there wasn't a lot of space to punch or to knee, but if I can make a little space and that arm can get free, boom, this is where I'll end up throwing that technique. Okay? But it's amazing how often you find this target available in places to eat this bicep bump where other conventional techniques typically won't work. I'd like to take a second and just share with you some of the drills that I like to teach here at my school for students to practice with. The first is using the palm of your hand to strike with. So the palm represents the surface of the target. So this would be, let's say, someone's jaw area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try punching right here behind my hand as I close the space, push my shoulder forward, and turn my hips. You want to think of it like a piston. Bap, bap. We do this during our body conditioning routines, but I don't really consider it body conditioning per se because you don't really have to harden this too much for it to be effective. The same with the leg, and we'll cover that in a minute. The next thing I like to do is put it into a chain of techniques. So one of the things that I love about old martial arts is that they see the entire body as a weapon. So the biceps a weapon, the shoulder's a weapon, the head's a weapon, the chin's a weapon. You name it, it can be used to protect you. So what I like to do is strike with the front of my deltoid, and then strike with my bicep, strike with my elbow, and then lastly, strike with my fist. So it's kind of a flow, if you will. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shoulder, bicep, elbow, fist. They don't need to be done in this order. I just want my body comfortable with using these tools and not thinking, but rather just reacting when I need that. Next, guys, I'd like to go to the lower body. I think the bicep strike, or bicep bump as it's referred to here in the States, is a quite common technique among people who are into practical self-defense. But this next technique I found very unorthodox but extremely powerful. It's like the big brother of the bicep bump, and it's done with the bicep femoris, the hamstring muscle. So this set of muscles here. Unlike its little brother that isn't going to cause, let's say, a knockout per se, the leg bicep bump is ferocious. This is really designed to break down a person's stance, literally to break their leg or to break down their structure. In Japanese, this is kuzushi, like destroying their stance. So if this bag, again, represented a body, what the position I'd be in would be something like this. My leg would be next to their leg. And essentially what I want to do, guys, is kick behind the bag so that my knee strikes across the front. What I'm looking to do is buckle their leg, or if their leg is straight to begin with, I'm looking to use the back of my leg to strike the front or side of theirs. We do this as a form of body conditioning for the thighs, and I always preface it with, folks, please be careful. This is incredibly strong, and it would be easy to injure your partner if they weren't bracing for it properly. So I'll demonstrate a few. So a technique that you can do, guys, as you're starting to get comfortable with this movement is to use a heavy bag and come relatively close to it. I like to hold the top of it and discover the space between here and getting comfortable striking with it. Now, when you do this with an actual person, there'll be but inches between your leg and theirs. If there were enough space to kick, this would be an option. Okay, but we're assuming that isn't an option. You're right next to the target and you're trying to strike through and use the back of your own leg, closing space to strike at their knee joint. In the beginning, it might feel hard to create that power. So one way to feel that potential is to give yourself more space. Lift the leg up, drop as you come through. Now, of course, this is much bigger of a movement than we'll actually do with another person, but it gives you a taste of what you're in store for. Let's take a look now at how we'll practice this when we have a partner. Let's now take a look at the leg bicep bump. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come on the other side of my partner. I'm going to have him bend his knee and lower his body so it's strong. For safety, I'm going to be striking his quadricep, okay? But in reality, I'd be someplace like this or here, and of course, I could stomp the foot. That's one option. But what I'd like to do is take my foot and put it between his as I drop down. So what I'm really thinking of doing, I'll come forward, is stomping down like this as I let my body come through the middle. So I'm going to hold my partner's shoulder just for balance here. Okay, these are large muscles, and the leg is a relatively heavy limb, so there's a lot of shock going here. If I turn my partner a little bit, and let's say I was here, I could easily strike this from the side as I come down and drive a lot of shock through the lateral part of his knee. So this is another great technique, but you don't need to do a lot of these for your partner to feel it, nor to get the sense of what it could do. So again, here, here. If I'm this far away, you have a lot of options. So we're really not talking about this technique anymore. I'm here. Boom, boom. Okay, quadricep for safety, but the knee would be the primary target.